Welcome back to Rough Draft, the podcast about young journalists, brought to you by young journalists. I'm Jamie McCarn, and today I'll be talking to Amy Donohoe and Tadgh McNally. If you thought I haven't said the word journalist enough already, these are two brilliant journalists who just recently graduated from DCU not too long ago. How are you guys doing?
I'm grand.
Yeah, I'm not too bad.
Yeah, I really chose Valentine's Day as a good day for this because journalism is the only thing I love that won't ask to be friends instead. Um, Tadgh, yeah, do you mind going first and maybe just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I've just recently finished my BA in journalism. I was from 2017 to 2020. I finished up must have been May last year. Everything sort of blended in 2020, so I can't really remember. But yeah, I graduated from DCU, and then I went on to do my interplacement in at the Journal.ie. I spent 2 months working with them. And before that, I was working with the College U as the news editor for 2020, which is good fun. I really enjoyed my time at the College U, and then since then, after I finished my internship, I got some extra work with the journal as a freelancer. So I've been working shifts with them on and off, and I'm also currently now a teaching assistant at DCU, helping out to sort of get young journalists like yourself um, off to off, off to a good start.
Brilliant, exactly. And Amy, how about you?
So my name is Amy, and I work for Dublin Live now. I only actually got the job at the start of this year. So I graduated from journalism in DCU in 2019. Then I went on to do a master's in climate change. Then I kind of left journalism. I went into marketing for a few months, and with 2020, sure, my life turned upside down, and yeah, I was left with nothing. But I got my job with Dublin Live, and I'm also an ambassador for spunout.ie, and I'm a climate ambassador as well. So yeah, things are fairly looking up compared to what they were.
Yeah, at least it all worked out a bit in the end.
Oh, thank
And
God.
just looking into you a wee bit for this episode, I noticed that you did a bit of writing for her campus study. Like, how did that go back in the day?
So when I was in college, you know yourself, when you're in final year, you have to, well, I don't think it's compulsory anymore, but it was for us. You had to build a portfolio. So I kind of wrote for where I could write. And at the time, I thought like the magazine sector of journalism was for me, like female journalism. So I put a lot of time into her campus, and I actually did my placement with RSVP magazine. So if I didn't do her campus, I wouldn't have ended up with RSVP, and that was a great experience. But I'm in news now, and I think news kind of suits me more. I suppose like I'm not really into Irish celebrities now. Apart from Daniel O'Donnell and Jedward, I wouldn't have a massive interest. And yeah, you kind of have to be creative for that too. You have to be into your beauty, into your lifestyle. And yeah, I think I'm like, that is great, but I'm more focused with news. And when I was in her campus, like I got to experience like different types of journalism. Like I wrote an opinion piece about my granny who died from breast cancer. I wrote about the likes of films that I enjoyed, music artists I enjoyed, just any little bits, sustainability, things like that. So it was very broad, and I did enjoy it. And I would encourage, like, you don't have to do a journalism course to get involved with her campus in DCU. So I would encourage anyone, if they have spare time, like, you can uh, do an article in a few hours, like just put in the work, and it can be a topic you're interested in. It doesn't necessarily have to be like, you don't need a journalism degree to write what you're interested in. As long as you have the words and the passion, you should be fine.
Brilliant. And bringing it back to a journalism degree, Tadgh, as you said, you're a teaching assistant at DCU. You're actually a teaching assistant in one of my modules last semester, feature writing. So how many modules are you involved in, and like how did you manage to land that gig?
Yeah, so currently I'm involved in, I think it's 5 modules. I'm working with mostly between, at the minute, first years and some second years in the master students for this semester. And it was just something I was sort of, it was after I finished my internship and I was just sort of um, getting back into the swing of things. I was sending out CVs and sort of getting back, uh, trying to find some other work because obviously I originally worked in a pub for years, and because of COVID I couldn't go back to that. So I was kind of just stuck languishing at home for a while trying to figure out like what to do. And then I got an email from somebody at TCU basically asking if I would be interested in you know, doing some work with TCU. Basically because of COVID, they need more like teaching support to like work with students because obviously with online it's more difficult to sort of you know reach out to some of the students and work with them because obviously you're in big groups and you can't really like work one on one. So they reached out to DC reached out to me and I basically asked if I want to take on the role of a teaching assistant for the academic year. And I decided, yeah, that I think just because I things were quiet and I hadn't really got anything else to do, I thought, yeah, I think that'll be something that'll stand to me and it'll help me sort of build contacts with obviously DCU lecturers and other journalists who work with DCU.
And what would be like your favorite module that you're involved in teaching?
At the minute, I'm loving all the radio stuff. I wasn't a massive radio journalist fan when I originally was in DCU. I enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed doing it, but it just something wasn't really something I was that confident in doing. And I wasn't like as sure about myself like as a radio reporter. But sort of um, working on the radio journalism module, so the radio newsroom and radio reporting, it sort of gave me like a nice understanding of like how radio journalists sort of work and how they package their content and like get it out to the masses. And just sort of by preparing my own material for classes, I've sort of gotten a better understanding of how the entire system works. And because I didn't do any kind of radio after I finished college, it was just kind of like a refresher for me, and it sort of gave me a bit of an appreciation for like the technical side of it, which I always kind of enjoyed. But then I also got the sort of practical experience of being able to get back into the studio once or twice before the second and third lockdown.
Great. And a bit of a cheeky question, like, is it kind of is it a paid position or are you just doing it like, for the vibes?
Oh no, it's paid, but I won't go further than that now.
Oh, that's fair enough.
We'll not be talking salary.
Oh, are you sure you're from Cavan and not Monaghan? That's a cheeky question.
Very, very
I
common
mean,
question.
you did pay them 15,000 quid for the degree, so at least you're getting a bit of that back. Like it was a decent investment at the end of the day,
I suppose so.
But yeah, as you said, you're a bit more involved in the print side of journalism when you were in college, obviously as a news editor of the College View, and Amy, you are fairly prolific, I'd say, with the College View as well in your time. So how did the two of you kind of find just that kind of student journalism?
Sure, I'll go first. I don't really like being honest. I'm not sure I would have been as active in the College View if a large amount of my degree wasn't based on what type of journalism I did. So, like when you're at the end of second year, like you can opt to go for an editorial position in the paper. So Tadgh obviously went for news editor last year. I went for social media editor because I didn't know, honest to God, I did not know what I was doing, what I wanted, if I even wanted to be a journalist. So I thought social media would be a nice handy gig, and it came in very useful for me like right now because well any journalism job I've been in since I've graduated, uh you're obviously given the Facebook details, the Twitter stuff, and you can see all the statistics, how many people are clicking, how many people have seen, who's liking, who's commenting, who the top fans are. Um, and then as well, like there's websites like Chartbeat, like if you're with a publication, they give you a login detail for that. And well, for any publication I've worked for so far, we've had it. Maybe not all publications, but when you're on it, you can see how well your article's doing, what stories have been the top in the past 24 hours. So if I didn't do the paper like that, it, I'd probably be so confused. So like the social media side was a good way for me to like wiggle my way into the world, I suppose, or the world of journalism.
That's a brilliant way to put it, I suppose, wiggling in. And yeah, Tadgh, how about you? What was it like being a news editor?
Yeah, I really enjoyed my time as news editor, as one of the two news editors at the College U. Can't take all the credit. I worked with Aoife as well on that, but I really really enjoyed it. It it was an interesting experience, obviously, because we didn't have the full year. We only had kind of like, well, we had the full year, but we had obviously the production of the paper was disrupted towards the end of the year because of COVID, so we didn't get the full whack of our 11 issues out. But yeah, no, I think it gave me a good understanding of like student issues in particular. Like whenever I did my internship with the journal, I was able to sort of do bits and pieces on sort of more student focused stuff, because I had a bit of insight into it through the work that I did with the college view. And obviously we had it was good fun just working alongside everybody, like working with Brendan and Aoife and so our deputies as well on like breaking interesting stories about DCU and that have DCU surrounding them, especially considering how it was kind of a tumultuous year in terms of the student union, because they didn't really want to have anything to do with us. They were kind of
I was
yeah.
on the I was on the SU last year as well. It was very complicated.
hmm hmm it was complicated. It was we had
But
a very complicated relationship.
I would have spoke to you, Tag. No
Oh, I
bother.
know. I know. I think we could always rely on Amy for now comment.
It's bad putting a journalist in the SU. I'll say that, and I'll say no more.
But yeah, other than that, I think I sort of gained a nice experience, sort of a nice experience getting used to like the basic ways like you work as an editor or as a journalist. Like I would work to come up with a list of ideas for all of the contributors for that week's issue. And then I would go out and write my own story, and I work with other journalists within the college view to collaborate on stories and to sort of build up contacts within DCU and outside DCU and other universities. Student journalism isn't perfect. It can be a bit messy at times, and things can get a bit warped and difficult. But it's sort of good entry ground and a good stepping stone for anybody like who wants to get into journalism. It's that sort of first step, and it gives you that sort of experience that you need to sort of to be able to, you know, um, it's more practical experience than simply just learning off the theory of journalism. It's sort of you're out reporting and you're working with other journalists, and it's the sort of first real like newsroom experience you'll get.
And whenever you first got involved with the College View, did you know, like from the get go, oh, I'd like to be an editor someday, or I'd like to have some sort of higher status, and get really deeply involved?
I don't know. I mean, like I've always been like interested in news mostly. So I think I always kind of knew that I wanted to go for the news editor job. Um, so that was all. I kind of always wanted to go for it. Like less so in first year, I was kind of like unsure what I kind of wanted to do. But once I sort of got into second year, it was sort of solidified that I kind of wanted to go into mostly news sort of stuff. But I kind of just wanted to do reporting from the very beginning. But I think as news editor, you kind of get that. You can kind of like you're the one who's going to be deciding like where everything's going in the paper. You're going to be deciding like what stories you're going to be doing. So you not only you don't get like you get a nice pick. You get first pick for stories. So it's nice to have that sort of that opportunity to be able to pick out the story that you want most, or that you maybe have an ideas for, and you can sort of work across multiple weeks. You're not tied to deadlines as much as some of the contributors are. You can work on stuff behind the scenes um, for a couple of weeks. So yeah, I think in a roundabout way, I think I am saying that yeah, I kind of always did want to be, always kind of wanted to work on the editorial team.
Yeah, I was a bit the same myself. I remember being a wee first year, wide-eyed and innocent, and going into the news meetings and hearing people reading like 20 different pitch ideas, and I'm like, God, I didn't even know this many things happened in a 2 week period. Like, I'd like to be that
Jamie,
lad up there reading those someday.
can I ask you something? I know you're meant to ask the questions, but for your very first article with the College View, who's the first person you interviewed?
Well, this will always be a very important memory I have in my journalism career. Of course, it was the one and only Amy Donohoe, notorious campaigner for Shite Night.
Those were the days, like you'd miss that so
I
much.
do, really do.
I remember this as well because I remember being at that news meeting where we doled out all these stories. And I remember the bright-eyed and bushy-tailed first year coming in. That was Jamie McCarran coming in looking for a story, and it's your first week in college,
Yeah.
already getting involved in the College View, which is more than I could say. Which yeah, sticking your hand up for the Shite Night story, and you had never even been to Shite Night.
Well, actually, that isn't entirely true. I had been to an unofficial Shite Night the week before my lecture started, and that's actually where I met Amy. So I already knew
Yeah,
her, but I didn't
you
know her
were
whole
in front of
backstory,
me in
her
the
origin story.
in the line, and I remember asking you what course you were doing, and you said journalism, and I was like, no way, I did that too. And I told you to go for first year rep in journosoc, and you did, and you got it.
And look at me now.
So I'm taking full credit for that.
And yeah, just in case we somehow have any listeners that aren't from DCU, that'd be brilliant. But just to let you know, Shite Night is a long-held DCU institution, or it was when such things could happen. Tuesday nights, we'd all get into New Bar and listen to brilliant 90s and early noughties music. And I remember writing that story, and it was probably like terrible, like me with no real knowledge on how to like structure a story or anything like that. And I just remember they changed the name of the event to Devotion, and I had the headline like, "Oh, DCU students like Shite Night more than Devotion," and then the editor changed it to "DCU students are devoted to Shite Night," and I was like, "Oh, I wish I had thought of that myself." And I've aspired ever since to just come up with something that clever, and I haven't got it there yet, but we'll see. There's plenty of time. But as you mentioned, Tadgh, you were saying that your time as news editor was a bit disrupted because of COVID and everything. And I can confirm that things are still definitely quite disrupted. The College View is no longer printing actual papers because there's barely anyone on campus to read them. So we've gone fully online. And interestingly enough, both of you work for fully online news organizations. So I was wondering, like, compared to your time doing internships or whatever, or just your other work, have you noticed like a significant difference in the way like an online news company is run compared to anything else you've been working on?
That's a
Yeah,
tough. I'll let
yeah, it
that
is a tough one.
first.
But what I would say is like the way we did the College View was it was a very much a print first institution. We would always focus on the paper, making sure the paper was ready to go. That's like our was the main focus every week, was making sure that paper was out the door, and was off to the printers um, by Monday evening. So that was always the focus. But with the journal, I've freelanced with them obviously, so it's more about getting there first. Like I'm mostly working. I usually whenever I'm working with them, I usually work as like a breaking news reporter. So I'm always like on like the priority list. So there's like keeping an eye on wires, keeping an eye on any kind of government accounts, any kind of if there's anything happening in the Dáil, if there is anything happening on Twitter or whatever, just keeping an eye, make sure things are taken over smoothly and keeping stuff like that covered. But compared to the College View, which is it's something that's you're primarily publishing twice a month. It's different. You're always on the move. You're always writing something. You kind of have to be very very quick with everything. Like when it comes to like COVID figures, you're always trying to be first out the gate for something like that. You don't want the Indo to beat you. You don't want the Irish Times to beat you. You don't want RT to beat you. You want your article out first. There's no sort of holding back. You have to try and be as fast as you can, but again, you also have to be accurate. So there's like this sort of drawback between the two. No point being first if you're wrong. So you need to like make sure you're factually correct, and your written copy needs to be good as well. Like there's no point throwing out copy that's badly written or it doesn't sound right, or doesn't have that journal style. So it's kind of, it is, there's a big difference between sort of the what was previously print focused with the College View, and now working fully online with the journal. It is kind of different. Like there's just trying to get the immediate, like it's more immediate, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's a brilliant point. No point being first if you're wrong. Yeah, have you noticed any of those kind of things as well, Amy?
Like when I was social media editor of the College View, like I've always kind of been involved online rather than print. The only experience I had with print journalism within the College View was if I took up any extra articles. So obviously, what I find is if I if I took a news piece for the College View, I usually I took a piece from news, lifestyle, features, and then sometimes I threw in the odd opinion now. So I would have done 4 pieces every 2 weeks. So that's grand. That's loads of time for print. But when you're online, it's constant. It moves at a faster pace. Like you have to think, like, what time do I publish this story at? If I publish it at 3 o'clock in the morning, nobody's gonna see that. So, but meanwhile, when things were normal, the best time to up to publish a story was about 7 a.m. when people were commuting to work. So I think online, like it's just such a fast pace, but like there's such a rush to it. Like it is enjoyable. Meanwhile, I found that the paper, like you got to wait, you got to take your time, but like at the same time, you took your time, and then somebody was down your neck saying you have to send this to me by 8 o'clock this evening before have to before we send off to the paper. And if you didn't send off to the paper, if you didn't get your piece in on time, like it'd be frowned upon. So which is right. Like if you don't get a piece done, like that's your problem. Like you should have had it done before the deadline. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is online is faster. And when I was when I was doing bits for the College View, it, like you had your deadlines, you had more time, you had less articles, so there was less pressure. But at the time, it felt like a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I'd say it did. And do you remember what the last thing you wrote for the College View was before you graduated?
Well, actually, I remember the last piece I wrote. When I did my masters last year, I was in lockdown. I was bored. I had a bit of extra time. So I was like, ah, sure, I might as well write an article for the College View. So in my masters, I my last piece that I wrote was a review of Niall Horan's album. He obviously didn't see it. I was hoping it was a gateway for him to notice me, but it wasn't. But my last piece when I was an undergrad, my very last undergrad piece was a bit on, it was another arts piece on Grey's Anatomy. There was a powerful episode about a victim of rape, and I kind of just covered that and like how powerful, how meaningful it was, and like it was just such a big step for the show. So it was paper worthy when the paper existed.
Yeah, I was just thinking there that the Niall Horan thing was a great send off to a brilliant career with the College View. I mean, you never know. Maybe he did notice it, but he's just trying to play it cool, play hard to get. So I guess we'll have to see
I hope so.
next time he's in.
Valentine's Day and all. I hope he has the roses ready. There's still a few hours to go.
Next time he's in Drumcondra, we'll see what happens. But so
With brain in order, maybe.
so obviously before you landed this job with Dublin Live and Tadgh as well, like currently with the journal, you're well used to a bit of freelance work. What's that like? Just trying to get your foot in a door, get noticed by a company like.
Sure, I'll throw my hat in here now in this one. You see, the thing is, with freelancing is I didn't really like have to struggle too much to get a bit of freelance work with the journal. Like once I got after I had got my internship, I worked with them for the 2 months of my internship then, and I was kind of told like there will be work for you here soon, and we'll let you know. Like there'll be more freelance shifts. And as I sort of had done my internship, they kind of showed me all the other like types of shifts that they have. Like I was doing the sort of standard 9:30 till 5:30, sort of showing the 6:30 till 3. Then I was the 11 o'clock till 8. Um, then like the late shifts, like the 3:30 to 11 or whatever. And then like I was kind of brought back in whenever like you'd get like the odd phone call, like, can you be in, or can you do this? Can you do like tomorrow at like 3:30 to 11 to cover like the late shift or whatever, like, or the second Trump impeachment trial is on. We need somebody in late to cover that. Are you about? Like you get that sort of stuff the odd time now. And it's interesting, like, because it's the thing with, I really actually do enjoy it. Like it's not obvious, it's not as like you don't get as many shifts as like you're not full-time staff, like, but it's fun, like to fill the gaps. And like if you're ever like if there's ever like a quiet week coming up or whatever, you might get a shift here and there. But it's like it's difficult. Like I mean, I had sent around CVs after I finished at the journal to a load of publications, and I kind of heard back not a whole lot. So you know, there it is difficult to sort of break into the freelance stuff, and that's why you kind of have you can just kind of need to get a bit lucky, you know. It is because there's no guarantees, you know.
Yeah. And how about you, Amy?
Oh, well, sure. Look at my freelance experience was quite a whirlwind, to be honest. I decided in second year that like at this during the summer, I was like, I have a bit of free time, like I might start getting my name out there. So uh, I obviously had a few college view articles under my belt at that stage, but very few. So I started writing for shemazing .net. It's an Irish girly kind of website. I actually had like good interviews and decent opinions as well. It was a very dramatic summer with repeal the 8 and the Pope visit in Ireland. So like I got good opinion pieces out of that. Then I suppose I wrote a piece. Well, I did my final year, got in. I did my internship in RSVP, and uh, I I went to Mexico that summer. So and then I was back in college in September, and I looked at myself and I was like, Asher, I have to do a bit of journalism. Like I have this degree. All my friends have graduated journalism jobs. I have to like throw my hat in there too. So obviously I started uh, applying for jobs, emailing editors, ringing editors, wrecking their heads, trying to get like trial shifts and the whole lot. Um, I got a gig with Dublin Live. I did a student column with them back when during my masters, and then as well I worked part time with the Sun, which I probably shouldn't have been doing at the same time. They were two different publications who are, I suppose, rivals in some way, but I was thinking of myself, I was thinking of income at the time, so and get my name out there. So I kind of did them both. And yeah, so if I didn't do that column with Dublin Live, I probably wouldn't be there today like that. That obviously did me a few favors when I was applying for the job.
Fun fact, whenever I was researching this episode, I did a little look through Tadgh's LinkedIn page, and it said to me, people who viewed this person also looked at, and there was Gavin Riley and Shane Brennan. So you're up there with like the cream of the crop of journalism when you really look at it like that.
Oh, sure. Gavin Riley's a big inspiration. I really enjoy some of his work. I spoke to him last year for the politics module and ECU. I spoke with him. I wrote a feature about like his work. So that might explain that, why he's popping up next to me for some reason.
That's your claim to fame, knowing Gavin Riley.
I wouldn't say I
Have you
know him.
spoken to him?
Best friends.
That might be pushing it now.
Yeah, I maybe we'll have the great Shane Brennan on this podcast sometime, and if I have the time, maybe that other guy that you mentioned there. No, joking. But Yeah, just kind of related to LinkedIn. Did you find it difficult to kind of, be a journalist and get a job, like in terms of, because obviously the market isn't brilliant to begin with. And then, since COVID, things have really taken a bit of a turn.
In regards to getting a job, it's actually like I haven't gotten a job with LinkedIn yet, like whatsoever. I think it's like Tinder in some way, I suppose. Like I don't get lads on Tinder and I don't get jobs on LinkedIn. I actually got my job with the Sun. I found it on Facebook, and I found the Dublin Live job I went for on Twitter. And then when they were looking for a student columnist, I found that on Facebook too. So obviously just scrolling through social media, like stalking, well not stalking, like checking in with the lads you fancy, whatever. Some useful things actually pop up sometimes.
Well, that's great, Amy. You're after destroying our sponsorship deal with LinkedIn, but
Yeah.
thanks a million.
Sure, look at you might get a sponsorship from Tinder now.
I mean, I wouldn't turn it down. But so do you guys find it like difficult to be sort of a journalist in the age of COVID? Like not in terms of, job security or anything like that, but in terms of sitting there and like about, I don't know, 50% maybe of what you're writing every day is just how many people have died, how many people have been vaccinated, what's the new like updates from the government, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, depending on like your viewpoint on it, I think it depends on your viewpoint on stuff like this. I mean, obviously it is we do live in a really, really, really grim time. Like, but again, it's like once in a century. So that's the thing. There's always something kind of interesting to write about, whether or not that's to do with COVID or the current coalition government we have, or some big scandal in the Dáil, or like like for example the shed match that was just between Duncan Smith and the Healy Rays in the Dáil. There's always kind of stuff happening. It's an opportunity to get out and about reporting as much anymore because of current restrictions. You can't get out. You're kind of, when you're not chained to your desk, but you're like, there's no like real press conferences anymore, except for like the couple of government press conferences that there is, and then the weekly NAFIC briefings. So there's less opportunities to get out and about for markings and stuff. But otherwise, like, I mean, I think the biggest challenge of the pandemic as a journalist, for me anyway, speaking as somebody who's like quite new to the industry, is like getting out and about and like meeting other journalists. Like, I mean, like if for example, if it wasn't for COVID, you'd probably be going to press conferences more often. You'd be meeting other journalists at press conferences. You'd be chatting with them. You'd be making connections and networking. And I find that that's part of the one of the difficult things about COVID. Like, obviously, I've not been in the journal's office because I've been working at home. So I've only ever had interaction with anybody at the journal over the Slack, over the phone connections with people, I think. Obviously you'll still chat to folks, and you'll get to know them like over like the couple of months or whatever you work with them. But it's not the same as like sitting beside them in an office or whatever and chatting to them like we would have done with the college view. Like, you're working with these people every day and you're seeing them every day, whereas because of COVID you're not seeing them at all. And you're not like meeting other journalists at like press conferences or whatever, and you're not making connections. So it's that's like the thing that I kind of struggled with at the very beginning, because you're so sort of separated from everyone else. Like, as a journalist, you're not like interacting with everybody like all the time. It's a bit more difficult to sort of get used to the whole just working from home thing. But I think now, it's obviously, as the pandemic has changed and like as it's moved on, it's more it's easier to do it. But it's just kind of like getting used to the how it all worked while working from home was just totally bizarre. It's just not the same.
And a complete 180 from this very important but depressing topic. What would you say is like one of your favorite stories that you've worked on, either with the College View freelance work, or with the Journal or Dublin Life, or just anything? Like, it doesn't have to be some sort of groundbreaking journalism. Just something that you enjoyed, and you thought it was good crack. Like,
Oh, I actually did a freelance piece for the journal a few months ago.
Oh, I saw that.
Obviously,
Yeah.
yeah, I was so sad writing it. I actually had COVID a few months ago, and I got like being from a small town, like there was gossip, there was rumors. I was apparently at house parties and stuff when I wasn't. I wish I was, but I wasn't. And yeah, people were saying this about me. So I was like, I'll write about this. I'll get like a fuss going online. So I really enjoyed the reaction to it because it was just so dramatic. It was the article got over 100,000 views, which is mad. Because it was just my silly little rant about my silly little COVID diagnosis. But yeah, I ended up having like four or five radio interviews the day it was published. It just kind of skyrocketed, like I wasn't expecting it to go wild at all. And obviously, the journal's comments were very entertaining as well. So yeah, it was a bad experience. I had an awful time with my COVID, but with my writing skills, I kind of turned it into a positive. I kind of brought it to light that it's horrible to have COVID, but it's normal to get it. Sure, look at the amount of cases now, like it's spreading like wildfire. So I just kind of wanted to let people know that like you're not a pathogen if you do get COVID. Like if you get the flu, like you're gonna get the flu in your life. Like that's like it's not nice having a snotty nose, a cough, a headache, whatever. It, but like people treat COVID as if it's like something like disgusting and like it's taboo to have it. It like you shouldn't get it. But yeah, I kind of just wanted to normalize it, and like a lot of the comments were nice. Like people were like, "Oh, she's right." Like, if you don't isolate and you ignore the fact that you have COVID, like you're going to spread it. So at least she spoke up. But then again, a lot of the comments were hurtful. But I saw this funny side. Like I got a good few insults, so I got a laugh out of those people too.
Yeah, I remember reading that article. It was actually pretty good. It must have been mad, like having 100,000 people reading something, and then some of them just being bit, rude, the rest of them being sound. Like I can only imagine the rumors floating about Cootail about where your COVID came from. Like, oh, I heard she was at a jacuzzi party at Eamon Ryan's house, like something like that. God knows, like, yeah. So
Oh,
Tadgh, yeah,
sure, I was allegedly in the pub. I
allegedly,
was allegedly in the pub sharing pints, like as if I couldn't afford my own.
just going from table to table, just sipping everything that's left over. Like, God.
Getting the ends.
Yeah. So Tadgh, what would you say would be your favorite story in that regard?
My favorite story. I have a lot of stories that I really enjoyed writing. In more some more I'll do something more recent because this is something I just really, really enjoyed getting to cover. I was drafted in to cover the impeachment the impeachment proceedings. Oh, it wasn't even that long ago. It must have been 3 weeks ago or something like that. And yeah, I basically just got to like sit at my desk and like keep an eye on like CNN and like watch the whole thing sort of play it in front of me. Just got to report. I'm not like Brian O'Donovan over in Washington, but you still get that kind of feeling of like you're reporting on something that's like important, and that will be looked back on in like 10 or 20 years and be thought, Jesus, that was mad, wasn't it? Remember when Trump was impeached a second time? Um, so it's kind of like getting to like sit there on like the front row of history and kind of just like look at everything sort of scroll in past you. It just I just thought that was something I thought was really, really fun to work on. But more recently, yeah, stuff like that. I love working on breaking news. I think it's kind of the very fast paced nature of it. Like you're ringing one person, then you're grabbing their comment, you're sticking that in the piece, and you're getting it up online, and you're following up and keep working on the same stories like that. It's just the fast paced nature of it. I think is just really, really fun. There's a lot of action. Like I can think again to the McConaughey story, where Charlie McConaughey was revealed to have COVID, and we got a notification of it. Like a government minister tested positive, and like there was a mad scramble in the newsroom to try and figure out right who is the minister who has it. Like, and you're ringing up, people were ringing up aides to the ministers and going, was it this minister? Was it them? This, that, the other, and then you finally find out that it was McConaughey and ringing up their advisors and stuff to try and get comments. And just the sort of really, really fast paced nature, which is just really fun. Like I kind of just love all of it, to be honest. So
Oh yeah, I love the whole speediness of it as well. Someone told me actually that Charlie McConaughey was in the pub drinking pints with Amy, and that's how it happened. But
Oh yeah, sure. We were licking lampposts.
big if
Baking.
true. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's definitely on the same scale as writing about like a global event of historic note, like Trump's impeachment. But I'd say probably one of my favorite stories that I worked on recently would have been this little saga of the DCUT Instagram account and its many twists and turns. So yeah, basically for anyone that doesn't know, there was a DCU Confessions account, which, as these accounts do, supposed to be run by a DCU student from Ireland, of course. It turned out it was being run by a Canadian girl who also told people she was from Australia. I was there like, well, I put up like a world map and like connect all the little thumbtacks and strings. Like it was mad, and yeah, it wasn't even like that it was that big a story, but just the stuff she came out with that she learned about Ireland was hilarious. Like, oh, I know you guys don't pay nurses very much. And I know you'd ride each other before you go on dates instead of the other way around. And I was just like, oh, this is class. Yeah, I don't know. It just sticks out in my memory as
I remember reading that. I
I
remember
read
reading that and thinking, "Oh, this is a great yarn. How did he come out? How did he find this out? This is brilliant." Like, I think it was one of the best things I read from the College View, and it was fantastic. It was just really well written as well.
like tea on DCUT.
Brilliant. It was absolutely fantastic.
Cheers. I was actually in the student union's little Valentine's Day Tinder swipe event, and then just there'd be a lulling conversation. I was like, "Oh yeah, did you hear about this DCUT thing? Yeah, I actually wrote about that. Do you want my number? Do you?" Didn't work, surprisingly enough, but um, so yeah, kind of in a bit of a different direction. Do you feel like maybe spilling the dirt on any sort of mistakes that you guys have made in your time as journalists so far? I mean, it's a bit daunting to be saying. I mean, I'll go first because why not? I remember like a couple of months ago, I was writing a College View article about something that Simon Harris had said, and I called him the Minister for Education when he's just no, he's not. He's the Minister for Higher and Further Education, and it's like doesn't seem like that big of a thing, but
Does he know
considering
that? Does he know he's the minister for like higher education?
he's still hung up on that whole health and thing, like he's living in the
Oh, it's
past.
in his heart.
But yeah, considering it's for the College View, and like nearly 50% of the stories we write these days are Minister Simon Harris has announced this, just completely forgot what his actual job title is. Like that, I
Oh,
don't
so
even
does
think I went and fixed that either. It'll just be there for history to see. Anyone gonna incriminate themselves?
Oops.
Oh,
I
no,
can kind of say what I did once, but I don't know, like, you might legally get in trouble for it because we nearly got legally in trouble for it. But I wrote an opinion piece about a certain sports star and I accused him of certain things. And it was an opinion and it was briefly published online. And yeah, if we didn't take certain sentences out of it before people started to notice, like that person could have sued the paper for me accusing them of a thing. I don't want to say too much in case you end up getting sued, Jamie. Like, but it was just such a topic that I was passionate about, and yeah, I just wrote too much when I should have just taken lots of words out. I can tell you what it was, but you can't put it in.
Fair enough, fair enough. We don't want the rough draft podcast being destroyed before it even begins. God. And yeah, so how about you, Ty? Hopefully it's a slightly different take.
Yeah. This comes from like very early on in or late on in second year whenever I just got the news editor position, and we were working on the kind of wrap up edition of the paper, and like we're doing like our SU assessment sort of piece. And I got like the current SU president. And anyway, I think he was out sick or something. I pestered him so much to where he like gave out to me on Twitter. And I felt really, really bad about it for months. I still think about it, and I'm like, oh, that was such a bad mistake. So that's why I've been like, you have to kind of be more. It sort of learned me fairly quick when I got into the editor position that, like, oh, you have to kind of be professional and you can't like make mistakes like that because you need to be approachable and you can't just be like
Well,
pestering. Well, you can pester people, but you can't just literally drive them up the wall to the
well,
point where they will lash at you in social media.
in fairness now, the SU, like that year and the year after, like they seen the college view as the enemy, as if
Hmm.
we were these evil people, like writing fiction about them.
It was very
When
Trumpian, wasn't it?
oh, it
Very
was
Trumpian.
like I'm happy with who's on the SU this year, even though I'm not in DCU anymore, because I know some of those people, maybe all of them, well, the ones that I know of, anyways, that they would happily speak to the newspaper. Meanwhile, previous years, you would have had to go through the process of sending an email, sending the questions prior, which isn't journalism. Like if you send the
That's a no go.
questions
It's a no go.
beforehand, but like that's what they made you do. Like it wasn't fair on us, and they never respected the college view. If I can say that, I don't know, but yeah, I think I think a certain story about a certain society kind of set them off.
Hmm.
Yeah, we are pretty lucky that this year the student union is actually sound, and they recognize that having like an open communication with the students that elected them is maybe a good idea. So fair play to them for doing what their predecessors didn't think of. But that kind of reminds me of, like, being in first year whenever this was an issue, like, and it's not anymore obviously, but I remember being in first year hearing about this and I'm like, can't believe this is something that people actually, so strange that like it's an actual problem. And kind of related to that, like, have you noticed anything about something about journalism that you never knew about until you actually got a job doing it?
Well, I suppose a simple example, just speaking about the SU there. Um, I always thought that it was going to be such a hassle getting in touch with politicians, but now that I'm a journalist, like I thought it was going to be the whole student politics all over again, having to email them, set a meeting, set a time. Like I thought it was going to be this whole long process. But I have politicians' numbers on my phone now, and I can ring one whenever. Like I can ring a few whenever I want. Like I know that they know of me, know my publication, and like they trust me, I trust them. Like we work hand in hand. And yeah, an interview could be done in 5 minutes. I can get a comment straight away. Meanwhile, I always thought it was going to be such a hassle because of the experience I had in the student newspaper with our student government.
Yeah, I think I'd echo something similar to that. Like, it's a lot easier to get in touch with like any kind of elected official or like people who are like high up in like unions or any kind of organization that has like a press office or whatever, and it's kind of easy to get in touch with them. Like, you can either just drop them a text and they'll get back to you or whatever, and like it's usually fairly quick. Like, there's no sort of hanging about. Like, you ring them, they don't respond, you're waiting an hour to hear back from them. And like the same goes with like press officers as well. Like, you kind of, as you ring them more often, you kind of build a relationship with them, and not maybe not build a relationship, but like you get to know them kind of, um, and they like know what you do, and like you can sort of like just chat to them about like, and just sort of like working away off that basis. Like, it's easier to sort of write your articles and get them out quicker, get to out writing more, you know.
Like meanwhile, in DCU, like a person in your year tag physically had to chase a vice president of the SU to try and get a quote. Like physically chase
Hmm.
because they just wouldn't do
Yeah,
it.
it's not a big campus either, you know. And like I remember, like when we'd go to like, I remember trying to go doorstop like SU officers like back in third year, like going up to the SU office and basically like knocking on doors, being like, "Look, have you got like 2 minutes just to have a chat with me?" And they you couldn't get talking to them at all. Like, they wouldn't be interested. Like, if then I remember like with some of the whenever we were covering it, they were only like vice president or president elect of DCUSU. They'd always be fairly easy for a comment as well. Like, you get in touch with them fairly easily, and they'd be happy enough to chat with you.
And lastly, sort of the big question everyone wants to know is, with your combined many years of wisdom, is there any advice you would like to impart on students maybe my age or younger on how they could rise to your levels of success?
I suppose now, when Tadgh was saying not to pester, I'd say pester people. Like if if you want an article published, if you're a freelancer and like you send emails, editors mightn't necessarily see emails straight away, and if it's breaking news, like it's like don't be afraid to pick up the phone. Like whether it's an editor, whether it's somebody that you need to interview, like just pick up the phone. It's easier, it's quicker. You get a better connection with the person, you get better answers from the person. Meanwhile, if they get the opportunity to type out an answer, like they have time to think about it. Like it mightn't be like it could be like a basic sentence. Meanwhile, it it's more meaningful if you're on the phone to them. Like, and that goes for editors too. Like it's easier to editors are very busy. It's easier to reach them over the phone, if it's possible. Like I know, like you could ring an office, maybe they might have your mobile number on their LinkedIn or whatever if it's your first time getting in touch with them. So yeah, I suppose top up your phone and ring away.
I think I'd agree with Amy on that as well. Like ringing people is the best way to go. And as well as that, I would say try and get in contact with some journalists that you like respect and like you think that they or areas of journalism that you might be interested in. So if you're interested in political journalism, get in touch with Paul Kors. If you're interested in like current affairs reporting, get in touch with like your day-to-day reporters. If you're interested in breaking news, get in touch with breaking news reporters. Like most of them are very happy to like talk to like young journalists and people who are like looking to get into the industry to like give them some kind of like a bit of a boost and give them like impart some of their knowledge. Like obviously I'm very very new to this, so what I have to say probably won't be as important if say someone with maybe 5, 10, 15 years experience might have. And a lot of journalists are very willing to like chat to student journalists and people who are getting into trying to get into the job, or they want to sort of help impart some of their knowledge that they've gained over the course of years to never be afraid to send out an email to like a local publication or radio station about like an internship or whatever, or like some like a couple of hours work here or there. Like it's always good experience. I remember doing it in my first year, reaching out to the Dundalk Democrat and getting a month's internship with them, like writing articles on the local area and doing news reporting on like accidents or whatever, or sort of the daily comings and goings of local politicians and stuff like that. Like there's always something happening in a local area, so getting some reporting experience at a local area is always good, and they're generally looking for people to help. You mightn't get paid for it, but you'll get a bit of experience, especially if you're a young journalist. It's always good to get that bit of experience.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I definitely agree. So you heard it here first, guys, from Amy and Tadgh. Definitely make an effort to ring the people you want to get in contact with, and don't be afraid to hit up people that you aspire to be like. Yeah, great advice. Thanks so much for coming on the show today, guys. Taking some time out of your very busy, I'm guessing, Valentine's days.
That's funny.
Thank you very much for having us.
Anytime, guys, and yeah, stay tuned for the next episode of Rough Draft.